Well, hello, everyone. I'm Tom Roberts, the Director of the Vendor Programs for PSNI Global Alliance. Welcome to our webinar with our global vendor partner, Williams AV. Once again, it's my pleasure to introduce Nancy Blanchard, Consultant Liaison, and the Williams AV Program Director for PSNI, and she will in turn introduce the rest of her team for an overview of their digital RF products and applications for contactless communication. This webinar is being recorded and a link will be made available to you. All attendees will be in the listen-only mode. And if you have any questions, please submit them to the question box to the right of the screen. We'll address as many of them as time allows. And with that, let me introduce Nancy. Welcome, Nancy.
Thank you, Tom. Well, today's webinar is expanding on the September session that we held, which focused on technology-based solutions for contactless communication in the age of social distancing. For this session today, we will actually discuss applications and how they are being utilized in different markets. Those markets range from courtrooms, education, teaching hospitals, concerts, as well as corporate training. So most importantly is carrying these activities safely. What are the options that are available to you? Tony Strong, who is our National Sales Manager and ADA spokesperson, is going to address the opportunity for new applications and new business trends that were not there before. So I will pass it over to Tony.
Hey, how are you? Tony Strong here at the Williams HV Global HQ here in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Just Nancy, give me a head nod if you can hear me okay on the screen. We've got an exciting program, and there are a lot of slides that I would like to cover, and I want to make sure that we get to all the data. So we're going to just dig right in. Thanks again, Nancy, and thank you again, Tom, for the PSNI Global Alliance, as Williams AV is your preferred PSNI global partner for assisted listening. So in anything that is wireless broadcast or assisted listening, please look to the W first through your PSNI global partner. So let's just dig right in. As we look at how times are changing, right? We have all had to figure out some new pathway to get to success. Old ways of behavior are changing. Old streams of business are no longer there. And so we're having to move and adapt in a new way that we never have before. But as a consequence, that's also creating lots of new opportunities. So with the manifestation of mask mandates and social distancing, we're seeing little red dots every 10 feet as we walk through the Home Depot or at your local Chipotle store. We're dealing with modified workplaces at banks and checkout counters. Well, now there's a big plastic plexiglass screen between me and the counter people, or the library checkout window. All of these things are things that have never existed before. These physical barriers are new. These guides are new. And what it's doing is it's creating a new pathway for people that are ready to capitalize on these trends. And what we're seeing is that I think everyone would agree, I'm boycotting the word the new normal, because I don't think it's new and I don't think it's normal. But what it is it's providing an opportunity for those who are able to capitalize on these trends. So in the world of AV integrators, in the world of education and courtroom administrators, we're having to make some difficult decisions, right? And I think it's true, no longer are we able to, maintain the old patterns of behavior. Those things are changing. And also lanes of business, long established business revenue trends that used to be our main staple are now just flat out gone. So as business people and partners, what are we doing about that? And in the world of ADA compliance, where Williams AV lives, how does this affect the world of the hard of hearing? For somebody now having a mask to have to talk, it changes the way we need to communicate, right? And so we're going to capitalize on some of these trends and solutions in this pattern. I think that we're going to see this trend continue for at least a foreseeable future. And I think that probably these social distancing trends are going to go even after vaccines are out and people are vaccinated. So a lot of it is still in play, but here's things that you can do right now, and here's system applications that you can take to the bank right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how our technology in adaptive listening in social distancing environments, how does that meet the requirements of your customer, your integration people, your installation people. So I think that it's true that with this new social distancing phenomenon, we're seeing a lot of these things change in courts, in educations, and in corporate. So we're going to point to some solutions that might be able to help with that. Now imagine you're in a teaching hospital, or imagine you're in a COVID sensitive area, or you're using hazmat suits and these types of things. How does that operate with somebody who needs to read lips for a living? So this young girl, Ashley Lawrence, has made quite a name for herself. She created the first see-through COVID-19 mask so that she could actually help to her people who were completely deaf and needed to read lips. So this is just one of the applications that we've seen. Overwhelmingly, the largest complaint we get from our market people, customers, integrators, and people who are trying to operate businesses is, I can't hear you. Because of the difficulty with masks, this cuts off all of the high frequencies of trying to communicate, and it's the high frequencies that carries most of the comprehension of the spoken word when we're looking at how we communicate. For example, I'm in a restaurant, I have to wear a mask. I'm trying to listen to my waitress who is now wearing a mask as well, and she's given me the options that we have. I just can't hear her, especially if there's additional background noise. So these applications we're going to cover are stuff that we're currently doing right now in these specific marketplaces, in courts, for higher ed, these using the equipment that we already have that's already in place in some of your ADA compliance spaces. You can get some of this relief right now. So looking at how this has manifested in the education market, let's just pretend for a minute that we've got a hybrid classroom, right? This is something that we've never had to do before. This is something that we've never had to adopt to in previous lifespans. So how do we do this? So in this application now, where I've got maybe a pair of teachers or a teacher that needs to also interface with a remote audience, this creates a whole new set of problems, right? We're going to look at that. In your courtroom environments, right? My interpreter, who used to sit right next to my defendant, now no longer can. My attorney and patient now may need to communicate using wireless devices. How are you going to do that now? So in the courtroom, this proximity challenge causes a problem, especially when we need to approach the judge to do a private sidebar. And guess what? Those conversations are all recorded. So now how do you get muted audio from people who are too far away to be next to a microphone? How do you get that onto the permanent record? Well, we'll show you how to do that. So in a number of applications, imagine you're the place in Florida, in Middle Florida. It's a theme park. You might know the name. It might sound like it rhymes with the word house, and you're really talking about the mouse, but these types of places now have to adopt new thinking and new patterns of business. So using digital technology that we're going to talk about in a little bit, this gives people the advantage for communication in spaces where now they have to be physically removed. In a warehouse, for example, at Ford Motor Plants in Michigan, I've got 12 executives, and they're in golf carts, and they need to tour the plant. And maybe there's an insurance surveyor or an OSHA line manager that needs to be involved in that conversation. How do we include them? Well, using this multipath digital technology, we can. Many spaces like warehouses and fulfillment centers, guess what? I talked to a couple of the folks over here at the site over here. You might recognize the name, but that shall remain unnamed. You might recognize the logo, but they need to train about 3,000 people every quarter because of the high turnover. So in this loud environment where you've got logistics, handling equipment, and all of that stuff, how is it that I can get my supervisor and my trainee and my trainee's supervisor to actually be involved in the conversation. Well, we're doing that right now, and we're going to show you how. On a sad note, we've seen a lot of outdoor events that have had to be postponed. We've seen them have to rearrange for timing. And one day, guess what? We will get back to this business as usual. But in this setting, these last words are probably the most important memory that any of us will ever have. And if you're outside on a windy day or a cold and blustery afternoon, have you ever tried to hear the presenter or maybe the pastor who is 30 feet away, or maybe we're separated by people? These are probably the most important words that you'll ever remember from this person, and we couldn't hear them because of the environment. So utilizing a portable broadcast that you can deploy with a local microphone right there now can bring that conversation direct to the people. Here in mobile hospitals, for example, this might be a tent, it might be a fixed room, but unfortunately, you know what? We didn't run conduit, and there are no microphones deployed in this space, but we need to have the theater actors, who are the doctors and the nurses and the patients within that operating theater. And then we have an observation booth, and there is no pathway. There's no wires. There's no Cat6 cable between here and there. How do we do that? Well, guess what? Using that Digi-Wave portable equipment we're going to talk about, you can now include all people, whether it's 2 people or 22 people, all in that real-time, comprehensive diction, so that you can understand the spoken word and you can bring it right to the listener's ear. We're going to talk about all these kinds of things. And back to the Six Flags people or the Busch Gardens people. I typically have one person who is a trained professional, and then I've got another person who is either learning or a supervisor. And that person is going to be providing color commentary. But guess what? Using a traditional FM technology, yes, I can do one presenter to many listeners, but how do you do multiple presenters where I have people that each have a role? I don't want to give my clients the task of saying, oh, change frequencies to this channel or change to that channel. You guys know, end users, we can't expect them to be able to manage that type of behavior. So why not just create a digital platform that has full duplex communication so that everyone hears everything all the time? That's, again, what our Digi-Wave does. For places like Boeing or Northrop Grumman or Cummins or CAT or any place making diesel engines or huge factory parts, right? At some point, there was a tour group that came through that. Well, guess what? Sometime last year, all tours were canceled. But here's the really important part. These people are working on this helicopter, and these people need to communicate with both the OSHA manager and also the major trainer. And guess what? Every once in a while, I'm going to have a guy up on the stairs who is monitoring everything, and he's going to need to say something really important at that time too. So the Digi-Wave system that we're going to talk about here in a second also accommodates this type of application. Let's say you've got now a language barrier. So I've got my English speaking presenter here now, and these people all speak Japanese. We're bringing them to our warehouse, to our museum. They're coming to our education space. These might be students, they might be executives or administrators. With the Digi-Wave 2.4 gigahertz system as a language tool, now I can also use the same Digi-Wave equipment I'm doing in my tour, and I can change it into, modify it to be a language solution, so that my English speaker speaks in English, that's broadcast wirelessly to my Japanese speaker, and that Japanese presenter now hears English in one ear and then uses Japanese outbound in the broadcast to all the people that need to hear native tongue. And guess what? All of a sudden now, you know it, somebody has a question. So we need to provide a pathway now for an audio back to the original presenter from somebody socially distant that needs to ask a question. Well, this is exactly why we developed the Digi-Wave technology and the language stuff that we'll be talking about and digging into. And how it works really is this. I may have an interpreter in my environment. This can be fixed or mobile, and I use a digital transport. So my main speaker's audio is brought directly to the interpreter, and then the interpreter uses that same device to broadcast out language on a different channel. So all of my cultural listeners listen to French on 1, German on 2, Spanish on 3, or Russian on channel 4. And all of my English speakers can hear the main presenter in English on channel 0. This is your ADA compliant solution. So it's stuff we're already doing, it's behavior we already have, it's equipment we already own, and this is a great way to adopt that. Now, in this picture, you see this is a soundproof booth, and in a teaching or training lab, my interpreter might be soundproof back here, and he might be using some type of an interpreter console. We'll show you how to hook those things together later on. So people often ask us, well, hey, what does this have to do with being ADA compliant? It's simple. These are the same pieces of electronics that we already offer for our ADA solutions, and when modified to meet those specific applications in a courtroom, in education, in factories, warehouses, or other large spatial areas, these same solutions that we use for our ADA compliance are also used to provide comprehension. So I bring my marketing message, my training message, my verbal correction directly to the ears of those people who need to hear it, and I'm bypassing all the poor room acoustics. Now, traditionally, for 40 years, Williams has produced an FM technology. And that FM technology, you can see here, uses an FM transmitter and multiple receivers. Yes, this is ADA compliance. It's already in every single high school auditorium, lots of playhouse theaters, all through New York, California, and all of the places across the Midwest for public venues. But now I want to adopt that to another application. Well, this is a one-to-many application that might not fit what we need to do, as I just showed you, in that helicopter factory or in that courtroom. So here is the digital platform. And the reason that this is important is because once you go digital into a 2.4 gigahertz full duplex pathway, now I can create those audio pathways where they never existed before. And I can get 5 or 6 or 10 individuals all in a loud, noisy plant with muff cuff headsets, and at the touch of a button, they have the ability to go ahead and communicate directly to the local people that we need to do, right? And this is a very secure mode of communication because you can add a PIN code that will lock out other devices so that there can be no eavesdropping. And it also allows you to have some programming. So maybe I want to have a channel for English and a channel for Spanish. This is what you can do now with the digital. And once those packets are digitized, and we're talking about digital communications, now I have the ability to route that digital packet to other places in the system. So let me explain a little bit of how the system works. The digital system consists of the DLT, Digital Listening Transceiver. So the transceiver is a two-way device. It's got a microphone button on here, headphone jacks here. So I press the button and I become two-way, full communication. Everyone sees and hears everything at the same time with anyone else that is in my group, right? And if I'm at the audio or car manufacturer, we might all be in group 12. I have encryption for these channels, so they are using a digital security of 72-bit encryption, plus you can make it more than 1028 encrypted if you also allow that PIN code. And that frequency hopping algorithm, this is why it's important, it's moving all through that whole 2.4 gigahertz bandwidth. So we're not broadcasting on a static frequency like an FM system would. So as audio waves move in a wave pattern, I don't know if you're looking at your camera right now, but I'm making that audio wave pattern. That can be interfered with when you're talking about regular FM frequencies or a microphone FM or a UHF frequency. When it's digital, you're using that whole bandwidth and you're changing frequencies over 500 times a second. This adds security and it adds clarity. So these digital packets are clearer than ever before. Here on the side, you can see that we've got different types of earpieces, different types of microphones. A lot of times I'm separating my groups with a colored skin. So now this makes it easy. I can see who's in my group. I can see who's in another group. These devices are super easy to pair and to use for the end user. Because the DLT, Digital Listening Transceiver, is a two-way device, Now I can deploy a microphone where I've never had a microphone before, right? So in a teaching or an education environment, this teacher right here actually has some hearing problems. And so he can deploy a DLT transceiver with a couple of conference mics, and he can actually mic a portable space. This is something he can bring in a pouch, set down on a table, microphone in area, and he can get that broadcast back to his ear. Or maybe we need to record that conversation, and this conversation maybe happens in a hotel ballroom or some type of training or conference center where there is no speakers and there's no mics and there's no amplifiers. Digi-Wave now can be moved into that space and utilized in that regard. So here you see a picture of a couple of different styles of microphones in a couple of our applications. One of our national defense organizations, it's a 3-letter organization. I'm not allowed to use the 3 letters, but in DC, I think you can figure out what 3 letters those are. They have a DLT and a shotgun mic, and for each table of 2 students, they share that microphone pickup. And at any time during the presentation, whether I'm table 1 or whether I'm table 101 of 2 students, any of those students have the ability to go ahead and tap that button, and their voice is heard through the PA system. Also, here's a new cool little app. Remember the delegate systems that we have by maybe Brailer or Tiden or Sennheiser? With Digi-Wave and this little portable boom mic, now I can drop a desktop pedestal delegate system in front of 14 executives at the World Bank, and I can do it in about 3 minutes and test them and have them ready for their program. And if I need to, I can even assign a 3rd unit to be an interpreter unit. And now that interpreter can also hear all the dialogue from those presenters. So these are just some of the creative ways that we're using the Digi-Wave digital 2.4 gigahertz bi-directional technology in some of these applications. So let's go back to that education space. Remember the hybrid classroom? I may have a presenter actor, which might be my student intern, or it could be my professor. I'm going to have a remote audience group of actors here, and these guys are on my Zoom call or my webinar. Their audio and their video is controlled here in the laptop. And then I may also have some in-person or live presenters here. So guess what? When Mary Lou on the web call has a question, how does her question make it back to the professor? Well, if you use a crossover cable here connecting the Digi-Wave DLT transceiver, now that conversation goes directly to the professor. When the professor speaks, that conversation goes directly back to the transceiver and is also heard on your remote audience, but it's also heard local live. So if I have devices for my live folks in the room and I don't have overhead speaker support, now this audio is heard directly by all the individuals. And guess what? Maybe it's in another language. So Digi-Wave 2.4 gigahertz system can be deployed in lots of different applications, lots of different ways that we can put communication in the hands of the people that need to have that comprehension, whether it's a marketing message, a training message, or a supervisory or a training role, or a safety message. That stuff can be deployed very, very quickly. So all of our systems are going to come in some type of a combination of the DLT transceiver here and also the DLR receivers. And these devices, as we mentioned, can come in a box. They can be deployed very, very quickly. They can be even fixed to the PA system in a presentation space. And it provides a great way to get your people involved. So if you're a tour person or a presenter and you're having to modify the behavior of your current events, Digi-Wave can be an excellent tool on how to make sure that your message gets heard and that everybody is involved in your conversation and they've got the opportunity to talk back, right? That's what you can't do with a wireless microphone. You can't do that with Sennheiser. You can't do it with some of the other equipment, with static FM even from Williams. You have a one transmitter and many listeners, but you can't talk back. So these kits can be designed and implemented with many different kinds of applications in mind. Again, these systems can come in a box. This can live behind Mary Lou, the assistant's desk, and she can put them in the conference room the day that we need them. They are battery rechargeable, so this is a green type of solution. And then these devices have about 40 hours of operational time. So if we used them yesterday and we forgot to charge them overnight, chances are they're going to be just fine for the whole time of the intermittent battery life. If I'm using it on an interpreter mode, I can get 16 hours or a full day of press and lock the mic, and it's just broadcasting all day. And they have about a 5-hour recharge time for the recharger, which might also live in this box. So for your courtroom or your public facility that doesn't want to use any microphone, there is an onboard omnidirectional mic here in our courtrooms in the 9th District and the 18th District in Florida right now. Use this Digi-Wave system as a court reporter pickup. And they drop this device on the judge's bench. It just sits over here in the corner. She doesn't even know it's there. The microphone is hot, and that's broadcasting all of the sidebar conversation that might be whispered back to the court reporter so that she can make it part of the public record. So medical, education, corporate, factory, training, all of these tools are available. You have lots of different styles of headsets, or in a social distancing world, we can let you now use your own headset that you might already have. Lots of people have the cell phone TRRS style of connector that goes to their earbuds. Walking down the street in New York, every guy's got the earbud in his ear, or you can use some Bluetooth applications for that. But these systems are fast to deploy and quick and easy to use. Here you see a quick laundry list of some of the Fortune 500 companies that are currently using these products, some of them on immensely large scales with thousands and thousands of devices throughout their factories and warehouse locations. So worldwide, 2.4 gigahertz is an accepted frequency. So many times FM, where we're in the 72 to 76 megahertz, or if you're in a UHF wireless mic band, you have to have a different frequency band for Saudi Arabia or for Japan, for instance. So having a 2.4 gigahertz means that now for international companies, which may have a footprint that transcends just the United States, these types of devices can be used corporate wide. So they don't have to change the device just because the frequency band is not allowed in that country or space. Giving you a quick snapshot, a lot of people typically at this point, are we getting any questions in the chat bar? If so, one of the questions I usually get right about now is, how do you charge that thing? What do the headsets look like? How convenient is it to charge? How many can I charge all at once? Well, this slide is designed to answer those questions. So the 12 bay charger can be a tray in a desk drawer, or it can be in a carry box. Typically, we have a system where I can drop 3 of these in a large format wheelie case so that I can charge 50 devices and bring them to an event and put those in the airplane checked luggage. We've got places where I'm mandated to have a hard hat. So I can't wear this kind of headset, and guess what? It's a full 100 dB constant noise volume. So these types of headsets are OSHA approved for 24 dB noise reduction, or an NRR rating, noise reduction rating. An interpreter in a hotel ballroom or in your classroom may need to have isolation so that they can hear the speaker's audio direct to their ear without hearing ambient room noise. Or I might be just on a tour or rolling around in that golf cart, and I need to hear the guy next to me, and I also need to hear the presenter, who is actually 2 carts in front of me as we're traveling through this large factory. The listening component can use a regular headset or an earphone, and there are 2 different kinds of listen-only devices. And this was important because many people said, hey, I need AAAs. I need to be able to swap out AAA batteries in 30 minutes before the next session, and I'm not going to rely on a charge to last the 30 or 40 hours it's supposed to. So those people have a device which is a alkaline-based AAA, dual AAA batteries. In a rechargeable situation, I've got the device now that has the exact same footprint, So guess what? It uses the exact same charger. So these things are all forward-thinking technology from us here at Williams Sound. This has been an area of expansion for us. We're having people call us up saying, hey, I saw you at the IMF, or hey, I saw you down at that mouse company, or how do I get this stuff for my factory? Or you know what, our stuff isn't working. I've got an education environment. We've never had to do this before. What do I need? So it is at this point, I would direct you to your local PSNI global partner to get you some answers to those questions. And if it's something that you think you want to try, go ahead and get in touch with those people. They can get in touch with us, and we can try to get some product for evaluation, or give you a quick 30-day return. If it doesn't work just right for you, you can actually send it back. So in your application now, where we're talking about a fixed environment, this is going to be a courtroom, a classroom. This is going to be somewhere where I have an installed PA and I've got microphones and speakers, but I need to have a remote operator. So this might be a broadcast show where I've got a production crew. This might be a local classroom where I have interpretation, or this is my local Zoom call audio, and it's going to come into the room with that, but I need to get it in the hands of my mobile presenter. So I hook a transmitter to my fixed AV broadcast, and using this Digi-Wave Connect box, now I make that local audio part of the AV system. So this is my judge sidebar. You notice what he's doing here? He's covering the microphone. So what he's doing is he's making sure that nobody else in the courtroom can hear his voice over the speakers. But if these guys now need to be 8-10 feet apart, how are they going to do this? Here's how. Each of them has a digital communicator. This is a DLT, digital listening transceiver. So attorney 1 talks to attorney 2, talks to the judge. They can do it completely remotely. They don't even need to be within the same room. They can be next door, for that matter, watching on video. And all of that audio now travels through my PA system, and it becomes part of the record. If I'm using court reporting software, usually that's forwarded here as well. Great solution. If you are working with courts, or you're working in the legal department, go and ask them, what are they doing for their interpreters? How are they managing social distancing for the courtrooms? Courts are starting to go back into session now. So this is a perfect opportunity to get in front of those opportunities, as we mentioned before. Here's another more complicated display, but let me just explain this to you. I have an attorney and a defendant here. They need to have confidential, private conversations, but they can't do that in the courtroom anymore because they need to be socially distant. So I've got my defendant here at a socially distant application utilizing a digital frequency in one group. I have my plaintiff over here, and that group of attorneys is doing a full duplex conversation in their group. There's a firm, hard line drawn between. They cannot hear these guys cannot hear those guys. It's the same kind of stuff you'd see at an NFL football game, where you don't want to have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers listening into the Kansas City Chiefs private intercoms between their thing. But guess what? There's no wire here. There's no cable. There's no conduit. There's no AC power in this courtroom. How do you set up an NFL style $100,000 communication system in a local courtroom, and you need to do it for 4 hours on Tuesday? This is how. And when it comes time for that bench conversation to happen, the attorneys just pick up their group, and now this is another third group, again, completely discreet, completely private. This conversation completely discreet, completely private, and this conversation completely discreet and completely private, all in the same place at the same time, and it all came in a box, and it arrived an hour before showtime. So these are some of the tools that are helping to benefit us. Again, remember, when you need to connect a line in or an audio source that is fixed, this is also bi-directional. So what that means is, by giving this box a direct connection to a transmitter, this is both sending and receiving audio out to other devices in the room. And then when other devices in the room talk, it's coming back here, and that is going back into my fixed audio system. So the Digi-Wave Connect is an I/O device. It is just an input-output transmission system, it does require a local power, and many times this system is going to live on a shelf back at your rack position. When it comes time for us to do language, when we talked about language, language adds another layer of complexity. So in that 3-letter training room happening somewhere in DC, I may have a presenter in English, but I might have an audience that is Afghani, or my audience might be Hispanic, or my presenter might be Hispanic and my audience is both English and Afghani. So we have the ability now, using an interpreter and an interpreter console, to take that console information and transfer that too. So this is the Williams Sound IC2 Interpreters Console. This is typically something that is going to live inside a soundproof booth. My presenter typically will have this set up. These are typically either rented from a company or physically installed in your space. And now using Digi-Wave, I have a 2.4 gigahertz audio transport that is both secure, that is both lockable, and it both can produce multiple channels all within the same device. Here, my incoming floor language, and we call it floor because that is the language spoken at the podium. That's going to be using the room PA. That goes to my first interpreter here using the console. He's got mic on and mic off capabilities, tone controls, but this console also allows him to listen to that downstream interpreter. So let's say that the US delegate gets off stage and now there's a Spanish delegate up on stage. This guy doesn't understand Spanish. He's French. So I'm no longer speaking English and I only understand English and French. What do I do as the second interpreter? So now the Spanish person presents here. This interpreter knows Spanish and English. He now becomes the Spanish to English transmitter. He pushes a button and out goes the English audio to my downstream interpreter. So using this classroom conference room setup, this interpreter is interpreting this interpreter. So you've got a multi-language, multifunctional system that can handle two-way bidirectional traffic. I know this is getting complicated, but trust me, talk to your local PSNI affiliate. They know how to get in touch with us to get you the correct system configured in the correct format to handle any application, whether it is a two-way tour guide or a classroom education environment, or whether it's an interpretation environment. I need 50 devices, or whether it's a VIP tour kind of thing where I need everyone to both hear and speak. Everyone in my group needs an open mic privilege. We can set that stuff up for you. So I hope you got some value out of this. I hope you saw some attachment to some of the applications that we uncovered. I hope it made sense. I hope we've got plenty of questions in the queue. Looks like I'm getting the thumbs up from our crew that we've got lots of questions. I do want to allow time for questions. Before I close and open up for questions, I do want to mention that we do have a TechBlue technical services department. They are available here at Williams Sound from 8 to 4:30 on weekdays. They are emailable, and you can contact a direct technician and talk geek talk. I mean, we joke about that a little bit, but a technical person doesn't necessarily want to spend any time with the receptionist trying to describe their problem. They want to talk to somebody that understands, I'm pairing a unit. What does that mean? What do I need for my antenna? I'm not getting reception. What have I lost from my network? So those types of things are handled by our TechBlue department, and you get those through your PSNA partner. They can contact us at TechBlue. Nancy, I think it's time for you again. It's been too long since we've heard your lovely voice. So I'm going to toss it back to Nancy. Again, Tony Strong here at Williams AV. A pleasure to be part of the PSNI Global Partner Alliance.
Thanks, Tony. Very good. Thanks a lot for all the information. So as Tony has said, you know, with the different applications and the different markets now, we can address a variety of different solutions. So it's working on ways to help people hear, see, but also engage. So that feeling of inclusion with one another. And I launched back in August a new consultant portal strictly for consultants. We will have a distributor portal that will be launched soon. But for the consultant portal is that it is available at www.williamsav.com. At the top of the page, you will select My Williams, and there you will register and be able to log in. There's an option to receive a newsletter. The first edition newsletter went out in January. The next one will be in May. But there's a screenshot at the bottom here that sort of gives you an idea of the consultant portal. But it's a real simple one page. It has manuals, consultant specs, white papers, diagrams, CAD drawings, product and training videos, as well as other events that are going on. And as Tom had said, I am your PSNI contact with my email address at the bottom there, nancyb@williamsav.com. And if we go on to the next. Thanks. Here's some more information for you. Tony talked about the technical support, my information, as well as Williams AV is located in Eden Prairie, Minnesota. But we really appreciate the time that you've taken today to watch our webinar, and we will open it up to questions. So I'll pass it back to Haley.
Thanks, Nancy and Tony. And at this time, if anyone has any questions, feel free to pop them into the question box. I'll go ahead and kick things off. So first of all, just in regards to Digi-Wave, what is the latency on that?
Excellent question. So the latency from the transceiver to a transceiver is real time. So by the time I go, I've already heard that sound on the other end. So the digital processing is very, very quick. Typically, we're looking at less than 10 milliseconds, so it's extremely fast. Since it's not typically going over a network or anything, it is as real time as you can get with a digital system.
Thanks, Tony. What happens if you have 5 to 6 Wi-Fi networks in the room?
Excellent question. So for an example, the range, which we didn't really talk about, your range is going to depend on the environment. So if I'm outside in a parking lot, I might experience 500 to 600 feet of range, or in a large auditorium where I'm running cameras and running show production, I might get that 500 or 600 feet. But in an area like Infocom, and let's choose Infocom because it's one of the most hostile Wi-Fi environments any manufacturer has ever seen, that range does shorten. Here's what's important. I don't lose packets. I don't lose digital quality. I don't lose the connection between devices. What I do lose is a little bit of range. So in that Infocom environment, instead of getting that 500 or 600 feet of range, I might expect maybe 100 feet. So if I have 60 Wi-Fi networks, which is common for us to see if you just pull up your scanner on Wi-Fi and see how many networks there are, it does compromise some of the range, but not the quality.
Will you be able to release a binder of data sheets for the products discussed today?
So that is a great question. I'm not exactly sure what you're referring to as a binder of data sheets. However, any of the digital specs, any of the system configuration kits like bill of materials and those types of things, they're all available from that Williams Sound website. If you go to the up here to products, find your product here and go ahead and click on that product, you'll see an access to a download link where you see technical specifications and also your bill of materials of contents of what's in that system, so you can determine if that system is exactly right for you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's all available on our site.
Perfect, thank you guys. Another question here for you. Can you Bluetooth to the DLT 400 transceiver for something like AirPods or other Bluetooth earbuds?
So we've gotten that question in the past, and currently we do not support Bluetooth connectivity with the DLT. One of the problems that we have is it severely shortens range. So there are many people who do want to use a wireless or a BluePod. There are portable Bluetooth transmitters that you can buy that you can mate Typically, Bluetooth only works when the end user owns both the transmitter and also the device, like my earphones. So if you just go out and spend $100, don't buy the $29 Magic Jack because they don't work all that well. But if you buy a local Bluetooth transmitter, you can insert that into the headphone jack and light up those pods. You may find that your range is going to be shorter, or you may find that there is other complications with that. So no, we don't offer Bluetooth with the DLT, but yes, we have seen it used in combination in the past.
Thank you. A quick request here to please go back to the screen with the slide of the contact information. And while you're doing that, Tony, another question here. How many simultaneous talkers and listeners does Digi-Wave support?
Great. The Digi-Wave currently can support 1,000 connected devices. Now that's, by our means, more than we've ever seen deployed in one place at one time. The breakdown of that information is that any 6 of those devices, if they are all DLT transceivers, let's do the Ford Motor Plant tour. I got 24 individuals. They're in 4 different carts. Any 6 of those 24 devices that are all live listening in the same conversation, any 6 of those can have an open mic. So as an audio guy, part of the rule is you don't want to have too many open mics. So you can, as a administrator, limit that down to 5 or 4 or 3 or 2 open mics. When I have 100 units, or well, let's do the factory again, when I have 24 units deployed, any of those 24 have the ability to access an open mic queue. So up to 6 simultaneous presenters can be live at any one time. When a 7th comes on, the 7th will mute the 1st. So again, I have 6 open queues that can be traded between any of the multiple participants in that environment. I think that was probably the question they wanted to hear.
I think you got it. How can you do a software update on the IC2 interpreter console?
Well, that's a great question. The software on the IT is an internal bus. I'm not exactly sure that we don't have a USB input or anything like that to manually update that. I would say that that does need to come back to TechBlue at williamsav.com would be my starting point. We would issue you an RA for that device, and if there is a new EEPROM chip or something that needs to be upgraded on that IC2, because let's face it, these devices do evolve over time and new technology comes and old chips are no longer available. So yeah, contact us at that TechBlue, get an RA, and we'll get that unit back here in Minneapolis to get that updated for you.
And how many languages are included on that IC2?
A IC2 is a single language device. Let me explain. So how many languages are included? Well, that's kind of a tough question. Let me jump back to this slide. So if you're seeing my slide, this single interpreter would use a single box, right? This is a mirrored device, so that if I only have one, I only use the left-hand side. That's this interpreter. If I'm using 2 interpreters in the same space, this would be the same English to Spanish interpreter, but when this guy has to cough or has to leave the room quickly, union laws in the US state that this guy can only be live for 20 minutes. It's extremely mentally exhausting to do a streaming incoming English and stream outgoing Spanish. So he has a partner that shares this device, and we call it belay. So as this interpreter sitting here, he's got the same headset interface here on this side as my English guy does. And these 2 interpreters have mic on, mic off capability, where if he needs to cough, he transfers the conversation over to another interpreter sitting right next to him, also doing English to Spanish, and they can do that in real time. So it is 2 interpreters capable per box, but always and always 1 set of language per box. If I've got a Spanish and a French translation, I do need 2 boxes. And each of these guys will have 2 guys. If the interpretation is going to go longer than 20-minute sessions, typically there'll be 2 people sharing French and there'll be 2 people sharing Spanish.
Thanks, Tony. And it looks like the final question here is just who can a end user contact to get a project started with Williams?
Well, again,
that one. So as was mentioned earlier, you can get in contact with your local PSNI integrator, or you can contact myself, and then I can put you in touch with someone. So you can email me at nancyb@williamsav.com.
Thank you, Nancy. And with that, it looks like that's all of our questions for today. So Tommy, back over to you.
Well, thank you very much for the time. I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to, I believe, Tom at this time. And we're going to sign off here from Williams AV. We love you guys. You're doing a great job out there in the world providing both value and information. So as these webinars become available, please check out your local PSNI affiliate. Thank you, Nancy, and thank you, Tom. I will sign off and take it away.
Tony, thank you very much. Very impressive, excellent product, excellent presentation. We want to certainly thank you guys and everyone at Williams AV, for our worldwide support from your organization. It's really good, and we really appreciate it. For our general audience, all of our PSNI certified service providers are listed on the PSNI website at psni.org. For our certified service providers attending the program today, our program with Williams AV can be found on the PSNI member portal. Nancy, Tony, is there anything else you would like to say before we close?
No, just thanks for attending.
So look for the W, right? Okay, today's webinar again was being recorded. You guys will be receiving a link to the recording as soon as it's available. Our Global Vendor webinar series continues next Wednesday at 10 a.m. U.S. Central Time with a program presented by another one of our global vendor partners, Kramer Electronics. Representatives from Kramer will be giving us an overview of their hybrid educational solutions. And with that, on behalf of the PSNI Global Alliance, thank all of you for attending today. This concludes our webinar. Everyone take care and stay safe.